Introduction to Computers and Information Systems, BCA-101. We are talking about system software, and the category underneath that, we now are talking about operating systems. And we're going to just briefly mention some operating systems that are more prevalent right now. Windows started out MS disk operating system, MS-DOS from way back, and then there was Windows 3.1, where now we have a graphical user interface, the idea of icons and so forth. And that's developed all the way up until now. We're on Windows 7 and 8 are the most popular right now. Mac OS, OS 10, currently is based on a Unix, Linux variation we don't have to know about right now, but way back Steve Jobs saw at Xerox this idea of a mouse, having a screen and a mouse and being able to click on things on the screen. So he bought the idea and he created the first Mac. They actually created a computer called Lisa, made by Apple, that had a graphical user interface. Not enough software and so forth that, so they created the Mac. The Mac then had this same kind of interface that Windows had. The only thing was the Mac had it first and Windows followed. There was some lawsuits and things along there, but now Apple then has now progressed to this OS 10 operating system. Linux is an open source. Open source OS, which allows people to adjust the source code. So many people have contributed or changed and adjusted to the development of Linux. Linux is also, since it's open source, it's also free to download and install. And then there are various flavors of Linux. Lots of different types of Linux you can install and have on your computer, and then there's lots of open source software that will operate with Linux. Android, developed by Google, is often considered like an open source too, but Android is used on, created mostly for mobile devices. So you could have a mobile device running Android, and also then we have iOS, which is also designed for mobile devices by Apple. And that operating system works on iPhones and iPads and mini iPads and so forth. These devices, all these devices allow us some communication, allows us to connect to a network in some particular form. And of course, all operating systems have all those features that we talked about previously, features and functions and so forth, to make the devices work. And then we can talk a little more later on about the predominance of operating systems and what direction we're moving in. There's Linux really comes out of a history of Unix. And Unix BSD software, and that developed out of Bell Labs many years ago. And this has stemmed into some open source and some not. And Linux is very much like Unix. A lot of systems were built on Unix, a lot of systems up above or resemble being built on that. Alright, so that's a little bit about operating systems, at least the different types that you see most common nowadays.